From a British backpacker who disappeared in the Australian outback while his girlfriend narrowly escaped a killer, to a mother and daughter whose family camping tradition ended in a torrent of mud and debris, outdoor adventures often promise excitement and freedom. But when things take a dark turn, they can end in unimaginable tragedy. Today, we're exploring 5 of the most horrifying deaths in the history of outdoor adventures, each with chilling proof to back them up. It was July 14, 2001 on the Stuart Highway in Australia's Northern Territory. The sun had set over the vast outback, leaving only darkness, broken by the occasional glow of headlights. The highway stretched endlessly near Barrow Creek, a remote outpost where Peter Falconio and Joanne Lees had stopped at a roadhouse earlier that evening. Falconio, 28, the third of 4 sons from Hepworth, and Lees, 27, were traveling in their orange Volkswagen Combi van. The couple had met in a nightclub in 1996, and by November 2000, they'd embarked on an ambitious journey through Asia before arriving in Sydney on January 16, 2001. Now, they were on a carefully planned route: Sydney to Canberra, Melbourne, Adelaide, Darwin, and Brisbane. Around 7:30 p.m., while they were on their journey, they noticed a white Toyota Land Cruiser following them. The 4-wheel drive, manufactured between 1991 and 1999, pulled alongside their Combi. The driver gestured urgently, signaling an issue with their exhaust. Falconio pulled over, and the Toyota stopped ahead of them. The owner of the Toyota was a man named Bradley John Murdoch, a 45-year-old mechanic and truck driver from Northampton, Western Australia. At 6 feet 5 inches, with a history of violence including a 1995 shooting incident at an Aboriginal football match, he regularly traversed these highways smuggling cannabis. Earlier that day, he had been captured on CCTV at an Alice Springs service station at 12:38 a.m., but Falconio had no reason to suspect him. Falconio stepped out of the Combi to check the exhaust, while Joanne Lees remained in the passenger seat. Murdoch joined Falconio at the rear of the vehicle, seemingly offering to help with the supposed issue. From the passenger seat, Lees watched through the side mirror as the 2 men crouched near the exhaust pipe. Nothing seemed unusual, until a gunshot shattered the silence. Lees froze as the sound echoed around her. Moments later, Murdoch appeared at her window holding a silver handgun. He forced her to climb over to the driver's side and tightly bound her hands with black cable ties. Although he attempted to tape her mouth, he failed to fully secure her feet. Distracted, apparently while dealing with Falconio's body, Murdoch left an opening. Lees seized the chance, slipping out of the vehicle and vanishing into the scrubland. For hours, she hid in the thin desert vegetation, while Murdoch searched with a torch, passing nearby 3 times before giving up. At 12:35 a.m., she flagged down a road train. The drivers took her to Barrow Creek, where authorities were contacted. Alice Springs police arrived at 4:20 a.m., finding a dirt-covered pool of blood and the Combi hidden 80 meters into the scrub. 4 Aboriginal trackers arrived within days, but found only Lees's footprints. A $250,000 reward was posted for someone with information leading to Falconio's disappearance. The breakthrough came from DNA evidence. Traces on Lee's t-shirt were 150 quadrillion times more likely to belong to Murdoch than anyone else. His DNA was also found on the cable ties and Combi's gear stick. On December 13, 2005, after a trial in Darwin's Supreme Court, renovated at a cost of 900,000 Australian dollars to handle the proceedings, Murdoch was convicted of murder. Chief Justice Brian Ross Martin sentenced him to life imprisonment with a 28-year non-parole period. Despite multiple appeals, including to the High Court of Australia, his conviction stands. Murdoch, now held in Darwin Correctional Centre, refuses to reveal Falconio's location. In 2017, an anonymous letter claimed Murdoch had dismembered the body and buried it near Geraldton. But like all leads in the 2-decade search, it led nowhere. The Stuart Highway continues to stretch through the outback, holding its secrets about that winter night when a British backpacker vanished into the darkness. It was September 27, 2014, at Mount Ontake, Japan. The autumn morning drew hundreds of hikers to the 10,062-foot volcano, where the first signs of fall foliage painted the landscape. The Japan Meteorological Agency had recorded unusual seismic activity earlier that month. 52 tremors on September 10th, and 85 on September 11th, but maintained the alert level at its lowest setting. The mountain's monitoring system included seismographs, clinometers, and telescopic cameras, yet none indicated the impending disaster. Hideyomi Takahashi, 41, joined 8 colleagues from Sampo Japan Nipponkoa Holdings Inc. for the climb. His iPhone captured their ascent, a cotton candy-like cloud floating beside the mountain, a sacred gate to the summit shrine. His colleagues making their way up. Nearby, Izumi Noguchi, 59, hiked alone, his compact camera ready to show his wife Hiromi what she was missing. Yasuo Ito, 54, carried a carefully packed lunch as he walked with 5 other nature conservation volunteers. At 11:52 a.m., the crater exploded. A massive cloud of superheated steam, gas, and ash burst skyward. The phreatic eruption, caused by groundwater flash heating to extreme temperatures, launched volcanic rocks at speeds reaching 300 kilometers per hour. Within moments, visibility dropped to 0. The temperature soared as hot wind and ash filled the air. In the Ishimuro mountain hut, 40 people crowded into the center of the first floor as rocks punched through the ceiling. Some found helmets, others protected themselves with cooking pans. Through gaps in the walls, ash and scalding wind turned the shelter into a furnace. Outside, rocks fell like hailstones, forcing some victims to cover their heads with backpacks, later found with thermoses flattened by the impacts. The eruption's fury showed no mercy. Of Takahashi's group, only 3 survived. Ito's body was found with his ash-coated knapsack, his untouched egg salad sandwiches still intact inside a cracked lunchbox. Noguchi's damaged camera, recovered near his body, contained 100 photographs documenting the disaster's approach, the final image showing the massive plume looming over a mountain lodge. Rescue operations revealed the eruption's brutal efficiency. Over 550 rescuers deployed in a roller strategy, forming lines to search the ash-covered terrain. They encountered what one senior Metropolitan Police Department official described as a bottomless swamp of volcanic ash, hardened like partially solidified concrete. Some rescuers sank chest deep into the debris, forcing them to use duralumin shields to distribute their weight. The toxic gases and high altitude caused at least 5 rescuers to develop hypothermia or altitude sickness. Bodies lay half-buried in ash up to several feet deep, some with multiple fractures from volcanic rocks, others found in protective curls or clutching phones and backpacks. Near the summit shrine compound, the ash mixed with snow, creating treacherous conditions that complicated recovery efforts. The final death toll reached 63, marking Japan's deadliest volcanic disaster since World War II. 4 years later, when Mount Ontak reopened in 2018, the scars remained visible. The once crowded parking lots stood nearly empty. A massive stone torii gate lay broken in 2, struck by a boulder during the eruption. The summit's exclusion zone extended 1 kilometer from the crater, while the ash-stained landscape bore silent testimony to that autumn day when a peaceful hike turned catastrophic. The tragedy led to lawsuits against the government for failing to raise warning levels, while the mountain's monitoring systems underwent extensive review, though the unpredictable nature of phreatic eruptions meant that even these improvements offered no guarantees of safety. It was August 9, 2019, along Italy's southern coastline near Policastro Busentino. Simon Gauthier, a 27-year-old French art history student, was exploring the untamed beauty of the Mediterranean coast. After 2 years of living in Rome working on his thesis, he had grown familiar with Italy's terrain. That morning, he set out from Policastro Busentino, planning a challenging trek toward Naples. Before departing, he sent his family a photograph of his backpack. The rugged terrain of Belvedere di Tiolandrea presented a formidable challenge. The area's network of paths wound through dramatic cliffs and unstable ground, where the distance between safety and disaster measured mere inches. The morning sun cast long shadows across the limestone cliffs as Gautier made his way along the coastal trail. The accident occurred without witnesses. Navigating the treacherous terrain, Gautier lost his footing and fell. The impact shattered both legs, and the fall's severity severed a major artery. At 9 a.m., he managed to place a call to 118, Italy's emergency response number. The sea was visible from his position, but the vast coastline offered no distinct markers for rescuers. Italy's emergency response system revealed its critical limitations. The existing technology could only triangulate positions within 2 kilometers in urban areas and up to 20 kilometers in rural regions. In contrast, the Advanced Mobile Location System, mandated by EU directives but never implemented in Italy, could pinpoint locations with thousand-fold greater precision, narrowing searches to within 2 meters. The search area sprawled across 140 square kilometers of rugged coastline, over 170 emergency responders deployed, including specialized alpine rescue teams, firefighters, and helicopter units. They employed drones, binoculars, and bloodhounds, but the challenging landscape hindered their efforts. Medical examiners would later determine that Gautier had died approximately 40 to 45 minutes after his emergency call, his severed artery causing rapid blood loss. For 9 days, rescue teams combed the coastline. On August 19th, a breakthrough came when rescuers spotted Gautier's backpack through binoculars. Following traces of blood, they discovered his body in a ravine near Belvedere di Ciolandre. The location, 6 miles south of the Narrows, lay within the vast initial search area, but the terrain's complexity had concealed him from earlier search efforts. The tragedy exposed the consequences of Italy's delayed implementation of modern emergency location systems. While 12 European countries had already adopted AML technology, Italy's emergency services relied on outdated methods. The 118 emergency systems limitations meant that rescuers had searched an area nearly the size of a small city, while modern systems could have narrowed the search to the space of a parking spot. That evening, locals gathered for a vigil at the Church of the Immaculate in Scario, the closest village to where Gautier was found. The Italian Emergency Response Network faced intense scrutiny over its delayed implementation of EU geolocation directives. The president of the 118 system acknowledged that modern technology could have led rescuers directly to Gautier's location, potentially preventing his death. Gautier's body was returned to France while the cliffs of Belvedere di Ciolandrea stood as a testament to how technological negligence had transformed a survivable accident into a fatal tragedy. The paths still draw hikers, but Gautier's final journey forced Italy to confront its outdated emergency response capabilities. It was August 21, 2015, at Bucks Lake in Northern California. Trevor Holminski, a 20-year-old student from Expression College for Digital Arts in Emeryville, prepared for what he thought would be a routine camping trip. His documentary, A Blue Crow, had showcased his wilderness survival skills, and he was days away from joining the Marines. His best friend Sheldon Stewart, 24, from Oakland, accompanied him on what was meant to be a final adventure before Trevor's military service began. The pair planned several days of hiking and exploring the lake's surroundings, intending to practice survival skills and enjoy the peaceful wilderness one last time together. The two friends arrived at Bucks Lake as the evening sun dipped below the horizon. They chose a spot between Mill Creek Campground and Sandy Point to set up their makeshift camp, unaware they were mere yards from established facilities. Trevor's mother, Allison, later recalled his excitement about the trip, never imagining it would be their last conversation. As darkness settled over the lake, the nature of their trip shifted dramatically. Both men consumed a potent mix of substances, 10 hits of LSD each, coupled with marijuana. The isolation and intensity of the drugs began to take hold, warping their behavior. Throughout the night, neighboring campers heard shouting and erratic noises echoing through the woods. Despite the unsettling sounds, no one ventured to investigate. Sometime during the night, a fire ignited near their campsite. Whether Stewart started it deliberately or it began by accident remains unclear, but the flames steadily crept into the dry brush, growing more dangerous with every passing moment. By the early morning hours of August 22nd, the situation had escalated into something far worse. Firefighters responding to the spreading brush fire stumbled upon a scene of horror. Stewart was found near the campsite, his neck bearing multiple self-inflicted knife wounds. Just feet away, Trevor's charred remains lay in the smoldering campfire pit. The fire, which had scorched a quarter-acre of forest during California's ongoing drought emergency, had inadvertently uncovered a brutal act of violence, one that investigators would soon classify as murder. Plumas County District Attorney David Hollister's investigation revealed a scene of calculated violence. Trevor had been stabbed multiple times before being placed in the fire. The murder weapon, a folding knife, was found buried near the campsite, along with Trevor's wallet and identification. Despite having no prior criminal record, Stewart's initial story of self-defense began to unravel as evidence mounted. The wounds on his neck, which he claimed were from Trevor's attack, showed clear signs of being self-inflicted. As detectives pieced together the timeline, Stewart's account shifted repeatedly. He first claimed Trevor had attacked him, then suggested Trevor had made unwanted romantic advances. Finally, he stated that Trevor had begged to be put out of his misery, though the context remained unclear. The physical evidence contradicted these varying accounts, pointing instead to premeditated violence. The prosecution methodically dismantled Stewart's defense. His lawyers argued that LSD influenced his actions, claiming self-defense, but the deliberate burial of evidence, the knife, wallet, and ID, suggested conscious attempts to conceal the crime. The jury deliberated less than a full day before reaching their verdict. Stewart was found guilty of first-degree murder and arson. The conviction carried a sentence of 26 years to life for the murder, with additional time for the arson charge committed during a state drought emergency. The judge determined that intoxication did not excuse the calculated nature of the crime. Trevor's death marked a tragic end to a promising life. His documentary had shown his skill in wilderness survival, while his pending Marine service suggested a future of dedication. Instead, his final camping trip, meant to be a celebration before military service, became the site of his murder. The case highlighted how quickly substance abuse could transform friendship into violence, leaving one young man dead and another facing decades in prison. The small fire that led to Trevor's discovery nearly spread into the surrounding forest during California's drought, though firefighters contained it before it could grow beyond a quarter acre. Bucks Lake remained a popular camping destination, but the events of that August night added a dark chapter to its history. It was July 13, 2022, in Buckhorn Canyon, Colorado, a place rich with family history and cherished traditions. Lisa Schilling, a 36-year-old fourth-grade teacher at Dean Elementary, arrived at her family's favorite camping spot with her 12-year-old daughter, Lily Arguello, and several other family members. The area, nestled within the Cameron Peak fire burn scar, had witnessed decades of unforgettable moments for the family. They planned to stay for a week in their permanent camping trailer, a comfortable setup they had relied on for years at this location. Lisa was preparing to transition to Bear Creek Elementary, while Lily, about to enter 8th grade at Deer Creek Middle School, eagerly anticipated her 13th birthday on July 27th. Also joining them was Annette Vasquez, Lisa's sister-in-law, who had spent countless summers in Buckhorn Canyon and knew the area intimately. For Annette, this place was more than a camping retreat. It was where the family had introduced spouses, raised children, and escaped the distractions of daily life. While Lisa and her daughter stayed in the familiar family trailer, Annette had set up in another trailer nearby, ready to soak in the peaceful surroundings. Despite the area's history of post-wildfire flooding, the family embraced the rugged landscape, hoping this visit would create another chapter of cherished memories in the canyon they all held dear. On Friday, July 15th, the weather shifted. Rain began falling, causing the nearby creek to rise several inches. The National Weather Service in Boulder reported that a strong thunderstorm had produced between 1 and 2 inches of rain within a devastatingly short period. The burn scar from the Cameron Peak fire had left the terrain vulnerable, unable to absorb water as it once had. At approximately 5 p.m., the Larimer County Sheriff's Office Communications Center began receiving multiple reports of flash flooding in the Glen Haven and Crystal Mountain areas. Deputies encountered moderate flooding in Glen Haven and significant flooding in the Crystal Mountain and Buckhorn areas. Private bridges and culverts had been washed away, complicating access to affected locations. Buckhorn Road was destroyed near mile marker 25, forcing deputies to utilize Larimer County Sheriff's Office Communications Center Humvees to reach areas beyond the washout. Additional search teams proceeded on foot, methodically checking affected areas as reports of stranded residents continued to arrive. The combination of intense rainfall and fire-scarred land had created perfect conditions for disaster. Vasquez, who was staying in her own trailer about 50 yards from Lisa's, later recounted the moment everything changed. A loud rumbling echoed through the campsite, drawing their attention to the creek. What they saw approaching was a wall of destruction. Trees, rocks, mud, and water surging toward them with unstoppable force. The trailer, where Lisa, Lily, and their 2 dogs had taken shelter, stood directly in its path. The flood's power proved overwhelming. Within moments, the trailer was swept away and overwhelmed by the torrent. The force of the water carried the structure downstream, tumbling it through the debris-filled current. Lisa, Lily, and their pets remained trapped inside as the floodwaters filled their temporary home. By 7:30 p.m., rescuers made a grim discovery. They found Lisa and Lily's bodies just over half a mile from their campsite on Calico Court. The medical examiner would later confirm what seemed apparent. Mother and daughter had drowned when their trailer filled with floodwater. Their 2 dogs had also perished in the tragedy. The devastation extended beyond the immediate loss of life. The Cameron Peak Fire's burn scar had created conditions that amplified the flood's destructive power. The fire, which had raged through the area in 2020, left soil unable to absorb water effectively, turning even moderate rainfall into potential catastrophe. Lisa and Lily became the 5th and 6th victims claimed by flash floods in the burn scar area. In response to the tragedy, the Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority implemented comprehensive changes to their alert system. They expanded warnings to include landline, cell phone calls, and email alerts for all flash flood warnings impacting burn scars in Larimer County. The new system, accessible through nocoalert.org, offered free alerts for flash floods and other emergencies, with officials encouraging residents and visitors to maintain multiple communication methods for receiving emergency notifications. Roosevelt National Forest Supervisor Monty Williams addressed the tragedy, emphasizing the devastating impact on the community and the continued risks posed by burn scar flooding. The Jefferson County Public School District mourned the loss of a dedicated educator, while Lily's absence left a void at Deer Creek Middle School. The community rallied to support Lisa's husband, Aaron Arguello. A GoFundMe page established to help with expenses quickly exceeded expectations, raising nearly $144,000 of its $25,000 goal by July 19th. The outpouring of support reflected the impact Lisa and Lily had on those around them, particularly as the family dealt with other recent losses. The flash flood that claimed Lisa and Lily served as a stark reminder of nature's power, particularly in areas recovering from wildfires. Their deaths highlighted the ongoing dangers faced by communities near burn scars, where the land's ability to absorb water remains compromised years after flames are extinguished. The tragedy led to enhanced emergency notification systems and renewed emphasis on preparedness in areas affected by previous wildfires. The canyon still draws visitors, but the events of July 15th added another layer to its history, a reminder that even familiar places can harbor unexpected dangers, especially when natural disasters leave lasting scars on the landscape. The implementation of improved warning systems stands as a legacy of Lisa and Lily's tragic final camping trip, aimed at preventing future losses in Colorado's vulnerable burn scar areas. Thank you for watching. Next, we reveal the haunting final moments of YouTubers who never stopped filming, even as death approached. These chilling videos capture their last breaths on camera and what they recorded.